it's Nora here from Soul Space. I have invited my amazing client turned friend who's also an entrepreneur, entrepreneur here in Alberta over to hang out, really, I think. Her name is Tiara, and she hails from, where are you from now? BC.
BC. I was born in White Rock and then moved up to the Okanagan when I was a teenager and then landed here in my 20s in Alberta.
In Alberta?
Yeah, in the oil field. And I've looked back a few times, but I've now grown and realized that Alberta has
Alberta grew on me too.
Yeah.
Like Alberta grew on me, but I want to live in different places.
That's definitely
right. I'm like,
yes.
I need the water. The elements of the water I think are really important. And if you're from BC and then I'm from Newfoundland, and so it's like that water.
And element. I noticed that you have the mountain view. So like if I
Yeah.
have the mountains, I'm okay without the water, vice versa sort of thing.
Strategic planning.
Yes.
For the healing room in the house. So this is the space where I do my work, my spiritual work, and my yoga. And it's a place where the children kind of come to relax, or when friends come over, we usually end up in here. So it's for conversation, for communication, for tea, for just some like in-depth work in a friendship. We always end up sitting in here. Even my husband and I, when we're like arguing, we'll be like, let's go to the room. It's like the room.
Yeah, it's a safe room. Like you walk in here from your house and it's just like a different energy.
Yeah, and it's hidden, so people don't know that it exists. Like when visitors come over, they always wonder what's behind the door in the corner, and then they walk in and it's got the floor to ceiling windows, the view of the mountains, the backyard, a pop of each element. So there's some greenery and stuff like that. So everything was intentional in how it's set up. But yeah, that's just like a little backdrop. So Tiara was a client first. When did we first meet?
Last year, close to this time.
Really?
The anniversary is coming up of my loved ones that I reached out to you for. Yeah, very, very.
So that's so fun. So we did a virtual call. I didn't know who she was. She just kind of popped up in my calendar, as people do, for a reading. And then we sat together. And I mean, you can share a bit about how that worked out.
So yeah, I sat with Nora, and as most people are, we're all very skeptical, and like, even though I'm a believer, I was still, you still have your restraints, and it's still your safe space, and you're allowing somebody into your being that you don't let anyone into. And I felt safe with the referral from a good friend for Nora to be the one to read that. And she channeled me into my loved ones, but she channeled me into a healing journey that I needed far more than what I was even aware of at the time. She brought me into some quantum work healing, and I had dabbled a little bit in Dr. Joe Dispenza, so I knew a little bit of it, but the words are quite large. And so I went with her, and she even let me know it's not a normal thing, but she felt that I needed it. And it was probably the best sleep that I had since I experienced trauma.
I recall this, and Tiara had experienced some significant trauma, and I was just guided. And so quantum work is just bringing you into a space of your mind and soul, but in a space that exists outside of the mind and soul, right? So we're able to use energy and the work from God and guardians, and then whatever's happened into your field to shift the energy in the quantum realms, which shifts the frequency. So it's a frequency shift. The quantum is a frequency shift, and you're able to do it with the mind if the mind is in a state of peace. So you had a peaceful, clear state of mind to do that.
And that's because she brought me healing to something that was very traumatic prior to this.
The quantum work. And so we were able to dive into the quantum work because we had facilitated the healing in the reading by acknowledging it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's so funny when we talk about it after, because I forget. And I'm like, oh, what did we do?
Yes. And so that came to be, and that was our first experience together. And it was virtual, just like this. And it was over Zoom. It was amazing. And it was a beautiful day, and it came and went so quickly. And then
business development. And so then part of my gift for my people is business coaching, business development, because I build businesses for a living, build a business for myself, build businesses for my husband, for his family, blah, blah, blah. Like we build businesses. That's what we do. And so I was able to tap into her gift in that reading. And it's a prolific and a beautiful gift that you have, which is
photography, and just, the visual eye for beauty is what I like to say.
So those family photos that you've seen of me with my children, like the portrait of us in the red and the black, Tiara, she's the first person who has ever captured our entire family at once. Ever, in such a beautiful way. And I remember tapping in and just seeing all of these things she was going to do with her photography business. And it was like little pops of light. I was like, oh my gosh, you're going to do this, and you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this. And then she like attached her frequency to it, and she was like, I can.
Absolutely. Literally. I think last year this time I had like 10 followers on my Instagram, and now I'm almost at 1,000. Like,
Really?
It's really grown. Not that followers are everything, but it's generating that
community.
Yes.
It's generating your community, the commitment to your work, the commitment to yourself, right? It's really important. And then those spiritual photos. So all of the photos on my website, also, I trust her with all of my marketing for my business because her eye is, and she just can walk you through a story in photography and capture it. And then we ended up working together.
Yes, at a women's retreat. Yeah.
At the Rocky Restoratives retreat in Banff.
Yes. That was my first time doing a big retreat, as well as yours, I believe.
Yeah. And I hosted a live mediumship event for 65 to 70 people. So she was there for moral support as a friend. She was there as a photographer. And then I also did a quantum activation for the retreat center. And I guess, are we both doing that again this year?
Yes.
And we're both doing that again this year. Yes. So this is like an example of how working together, and when alignment happens, it's really impossible to keep your soul fam separate, right? It's really impossible when, and I always say, like, a lot of my clients I become friends with, but you live close. So we've been able to actually like become physical friends rather than internet friends. But I do have a lot of women that I've worked with that they've either like joined Soul Sanctuary just for the ongoing support, but they've become friends as well, right? Because the business support that I offer in Soul Sanctuary for entrepreneurs, it's really for women entrepreneurs, helps them step up their game in their bodies and their souls to align to their purpose to create prosperity.
And you create community as you do that. And
then they're starting to talk, like I see the girls talking in the different channels in Soul Sanctuary, and they're making friends and they're passing off ideas, and I'm like, this is amazing.
Absolutely.
It's so beautiful. And then, funny story, Tiara came by today. And I had no idea what she was like, what was happening. So I'm actually going to get a tattoo by her husband. Her husband's an amazing tattoo artist here in Calgary. So he's tattooing our family tomorrow. So we're going to see him tomorrow. And she's like, oh, but I might need your help with something. I was like, what did you do? What did you do? She bought a salon. It's so she's gonna have her own hair salon in Cochrane, right? And when she came in, I was like, oh, I saw all these colors popping into my head. So this is how business development works for me. And I saw all these colors popping into my head. And then before I could say the colors, she was spitting out the colors. She was like, I was thinking Neapolitan, like retro vintage. And I was like, pops of coral and pops of teal. And then we'd be able to bring all of these together and just create this beautiful space. And she was like, you nailed it. But then I was like, oh, but Tiara, what are we going to call it? It becomes a we, even though
that's why I'm here. It's a we.
It's a we. But even though it's a complete she, I was like, oh, what are we going to call it? And she was like, well, I'd really like something like with my name, because my name is beautiful. And I was like, her name is absolutely beautiful. But then I was like, Tiara, the tea house, the tea house, the tea house. And then with the tea house, creating this beautiful synergy of the tea, because her name is so feminine and she wants a feminine atmosphere, creating this beautiful scripture tea, and then house, not the formal house, because we're not formal around here. It's like HAUS. But then she loves vintage. And I was like, how many of us like to go to a hair salon and drink out of a beautiful glass, like a glass cup or a glass mug? And then to have tea offerings in the mountains, like you could go and you could sit and have tea out of this beautiful vintage cup in this beautifully designed space, and then get your hair done. Like these are just like little examples of how the spirit works with me in terms of helping entrepreneurs. I think that's all the point of this is like spirit just tells me what their spirit already knows.
Yes.
But then we can bring it together in like a cohesive package.
And then she also thinks of her loved ones within that too. And we capitalize on my gift with her son's girlfriend.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And so another entrepreneur.
So my son's girlfriend, like she thrives to be, she wants to be a hairdresser, she wants to be a hairstylist. And she's like, I don't know how to start. I'm 16. We live in Airdrie. I don't have any connections. And I was like, yeah, will you take an apprentice? And she was like, heck to the yes. And I was like, this is the beauty of alignment when you work and co-create with people. Okay. And see how I slid that in there? Multidimensional self. My husband was like, I'm leaving. Is that okay? Okay. And so to be able to co-create community and expand, because that's what life, I think, is truly about, is expansion, right? Connection, expansion.
And
connection,
and that's what we do
expansion.
together. I feel like every time we see each other, it's like this expansion to one another. I feel
frequency uplift.
Yes.
Like we uplift the frequency one way or another in the physical world and in the spiritual world, because we're not working with the illusions anymore.
And once we leave one another, it's like constant back and forth. Like I think of this and I thought of this, and it's like I go to reach out to pull out my phone to message Nora, and the message is already coming through, and I'm like, what is happening? And you know,
it's like when, it's when intuitive people or people that are even awakening into their gifts. Are you finding you're either losing friends or friends are awakening into their journey?
I have both.
It happens, right?
Yeah.
People fall. We call it the frequency fallout. They don't align.
Yeah.
And it triggers like your vibration. We're meant to live. We're not meant to dumb down our power. We're not meant to hide from our awesomeness. Like we're not meant to be like, oh, we're too much. Oh, I'm too much for this space. I'm too happy to be in here.
Yes.
I have too much energy. No, what? No. We should be lifting each other up. And when you see somebody like that, loving that about them, and if it triggers something within you that you don't like to see somebody happy, the war on happy people, says Shoshana Raven, one of my mentors. She said there's a war on happy people. And I'm like, it's true.
It's very true.
It's true. People, because they're triggered into the unhealed aspects of themselves that they don't want to look at. So they project it onto you.
Right.
So the more you trigger, and I've always been told by my mentors, by employers, probably even my husband and my parents, Nora, you trigger the shit out of people. And I used to think, why? Like, why do people hate me? Why, when I show up, are people annoyed by me or jealous, or I turn them off energetically? They're like, ugh, who does she think she is?
Meanwhile, you're still like, I love you. I'm sorry that you to feel that way.
But before, I used to be like, what is it about me? I made it about me, first of all.
Of course.
I made it about me. What am I doing wrong? Now, after my Iboga ceremony, that will never happen again. It's like, it was never about me. That was about that. And it will continue to be about other people, because we are as light bodies and light energy here to trigger the dark in people, right? They're going to mirror what they think and try to project it onto you about what's wrong with them.
Totally.
So, like she said, she's lost friends, gained friends. My entire friend circle in the last 10 years, it's completely different.
Yeah, it's a big shift.
I'm
in the early 30s right now, so it's like I feel when you're coming out of your 20s, you're changing so much as a person already. I feel like you're really, and my husband's 40 as well, so I feel like I'm very attracted to that. And my older sister is as well, and like that's my realm of people.
Gen Z.
Yes, but that was
Am I a Gen Z? I'm 40. I'm an 83. I still don't recall those like time frames.
I don't.
I think those are 90s.
I'm in 90s, baby.
You're a Gen Z. You're a Gen Z.
But I feel like when you're coming out of your 20s, it's such a scary time, and you're going through so much shift, and there's so much change, and some people are even going on to their second marriages and like having blended families, and just different things are happening. But I feel like so many people are in such a transition. It's whether or not you're aware it's a spiritual one, not just an ego one in your life. Right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's where it's a shift in me right now, because I'm sort of more in the ego realm, where a lot of my friends in my circle are in a very self-centered realm of their shift. Yeah. And so I'm just like,
you have to go through that first before but some people are able to, I guess, if you align yourself with the right community, friendships, not even a community, but just like friends, right? Or align with the positive aspects of mind, then you're able to make that shift, right? That vibration is a true thing. Vibration is a true factor of how we live and reside in the world, and who we connect with and who we don't.
Right.
And the higher your vibration, if you're meeting people who are of a lower vibration, either they can choose to lean in and elevate, which a lot of people do,
Yeah.
Or they can choose to be like, I can't do it.
I'm no longer inspired. I need to revert,
Yeah.
retract, like go back
Revert
into my
and retract.
darkness. But
so
like that's not
interesting.
us. And so I do feel like, yeah, in a lot of ways I actually do get attacked in a lot of ways because I've been
You're
told
changing.
I've been told lots that I'm changing and
It's
that I'm
beautiful.
a bright light. And so when you go back to the light and like that energy, there's a lot of people in my world right now that like want to dim that, but then I come and tap into this friendship and it reignites it, right? Of course.
And I think honestly, if you're watching this and it's just like talking about the physical world and the spiritual world and then making it digestible is so important, but also like leaning into a community where you feel held and supported and seen, and also people that are going to activate your bullshit. Because I'm not here to tell her all of the great things.
No,
I was like,
definitely
we are
not.
not calling your salon Tiara's studio.
No.
Like,
She is not.
No, I will act like I'm here to speak truth and honesty, but with grace and love, and then to help dive into different threads of expansion of how things can work. I'm not here to give the answers, although sometimes God and guardians and spirits, they show up to give a lot of insight.
But you convey it beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are very beautiful in how you convey what needs to come across, and you do it with grace. So you don't go into that ego of being like,
I don't want to hurt someone.
You're like
with my
excited
language.
when you share things that need to be said.
And that shifted within me as well. I think all of the plant medicines and stuff, like getting out of my ego. So once I take the ego out of how I speak to people, I can only speak from the heart. And so when I work and speak and thrive in a heart space, I'm out of the mind because the mind doesn't exist anymore. And that was like Iboga's training, right? Like that was like the journey. It was like the mind doesn't exist. The mind is the illusion world.
Right.
It exists because people create it. And I'm like, but we don't. Like it doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. You will actually catch Tiara and I working together again at the Rocky Restorative Retreat this year in May.
Yes.
I'm a little unorganized when it comes to those things.
And you'll be seeing us on Soul Space together for my salon.
Oh, yeah. So we're actually going to be designing her soul space. So I will be getting some behind the scenes video capturing. We're going to go and explore the space. My husband's going to build it out. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be, we were even talking about how in Canmore, there's a spring in Cochrane where we get our water from, because I will never drink tap water ever again after I did Iboga, ever, never. I actually went to a cafe and I was like, he was like, would you like a glass of water? And I was like, is it spring water? And he looked at me and I was like, or do you have spring water? And he just looked at me and I was like, yes, no, or is it tap water? And he was like, well, I don't know what type of water it is. And people don't actually know unless you know.
Yeah,
right?
And it's a big deal once you know.
And
I feel like once you know,
you
know.
You know, right?
Yeah.
And so she could only serve mountain water at her salon. So people can come in, they can have tea offerings, they could have mountain water from glassware in a beautiful space where time doesn't exist, but you just come to be, and you can just nourish your soul, you can nourish your body, you can nourish your hair, you can just really get full spiritual service in a hair salon, because she's
we're leaning into it more and more, but yes, yeah.
So it'll be really cool. So stay tuned for that as we develop the tea house.
Yeah,
and it's gonna be sweet.
It's gonna be so sweet. It's gonna be a beautiful project. You guys definitely want to stay tuned for this.
Yes. Yes. Interesting.
Oh, so we're live.
I didn't really know. We love you, love you, love you, and stay tuned. Like, what did my kids say? Like and subscribe to my channel. And I was like, I don't have a YouTube channel, but now I do, because my marketing manager was like, you need to make a YouTube channel. I was like, oh.
So like and subscribe.
So like and subscribe. Love you.